Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Turnup. Thank you, everyone who continues to listen to this. We didn't hit our goal last episode, but that's okay. We are rallying the 150 people that continuously listen to us. We didn't thank you last episode, and I actually think that's why we didn't do as well. So we're thanking you to start off this episode. But all right, let's get right into it because we want to look at Trump's 100 days in office, his first 100 days, the good, the bad, the ugly. And we want to look at it from both sides. We want to take a non-biased approach as much as possible. And honestly, I just want to have some fun with it. So, CK, you ready to jump into this?
I'm ready, MR. Let's do it.
All right, all right. And you know what? There might be some conspiracies in here as well. So let's first look at Trump's good. So when we look at Trump's good, I am referring to if you voted for Trump, if you like Trump. Obviously, if you hated Trump or didn't vote for him, he probably didn't do anything good in your eyes. So put yourself in the shoes of a Trump voter, and let's go for there. And CK, I want to start off by playing a game. Are you down for it?
I love games.
I am going to give you 3 Trump wins. And again, Trump wins as in eyes of people that voted for him. And I want you to pick one where we can have a good discussion about. So, you want to play?
I'm in. I
All
think
right.
I'm contestant number one.
Yeah, you're the only contestant. All right. So, so number 1, he established the Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE, and this was led by Elon Musk. And DOGE aimed to reduce federal bureaucracy and spending, signaling a commitment to streamline governance, something that we covered a lot. Number 2, aggressive immigration enforcement. The administration implemented strict immigration measures, including the Laken Riley Act, leading to a 90% decline in border crossings, say that 10 times fast, and a 627% in ICE arrests compared to the previous administration. And CK, let's open door number 3. The foreign policy shift. The administration withdrew from international agreements like the Paris Climate Accord and the World Health Organization, emphasizing national security and overall American first, or America first, baby. CK, do you want to talk about 1, 2, or 3?
Well, if we're talking about what he did well, I think the big one that stands out is 2, MR.
All right, let's hear it.
Immigration enforcement. Yeah, so I think when you say what did you do well, it's did the American people vote for this? Is this what they wanted? And is what you did effective? Right? You have to look at both
Yep.
of those. Because all 3 of them, I think, he did what his voters wanted, but levels of effectiveness have varied. But for immigration enforcement, I think overnight, the border crossings have stopped. The mass immigration camps in every big city has completely, the faucet has been shut, and I think it's been one of the most effective immigration policies in the history of the United States.
I think you can say that with absolute certainty. And so I like
And he did it,
exactly.
and he did it without increasing spending. He didn't have to, like, no laws had to be changed, no bills had to be passed. He just enforced the laws that were already in place that the last administration weren't.
Yeah, and I really think you're right. If you were to look at a one single absolute W for people that voted for Trump, it is immigration. That was one of his biggest talking points that you brought up. And when you talk about a 90 freaking percent decrease in border crossings, like that is astronomical. That's massive. I was reading an article on AP News and it was talking about like how these little towns in Mexico, their entire economy was based off like illegal immigration and how they're basically bankrupt and those towns don't exist anymore. And I'm like, that is insane. In 100 days, he has completely destroyed the economy of illegal smuggling of humans across the border.
Yeah, exactly. So effective, yes, 100%. And is it what the American people wanted? Because you could say, effectively, doing bad things effectively is not good. But I think most of the American, when we talked last week about 90-10, these are 90-10 issues where 90% of Americans are like, what happened the last 4 years with Biden Harris was completely banana land, and
Yep.
something had to stop. And even the most ardent Democrats, or maybe not the most ardent, but I think he won a lot of Democrats and definitely almost every independent over because of this issue, and he made good on his promise.
Yeah, and if we were to shift a little into the bad, to play a little devil's advocate here, one of the biggest issues, and you could probably see it a lot on the news, is the ICE portion. So there's an increase of 627% of deporting illegal immigrants in America. And how that's been done has been, I think, mixed reviews is the nicest way to say it, because, we're trying to highlight the good. I've read articles about deporting children, like how do you move a 2-year-old across the border? You're talking about deporting the wrong people. I think there's just an article about a spouse of either a Coast Guard sailor or a Navy sailor being swept up by ICE. And so it seems the effectiveness in deporting people may not be as good as it can be, especially when you want to focus on deporting, individuals that are in gangs, individuals that are distributing drugs, or anything in that line of work.
Yeah, I would probably push back on that
All right,
and
let's
just
hear it.
say, maybe there are individual mistakes, and the news has certainly latched on to those individual
Of course,
um,
as you can predict.
storylines. But I mean, when you're talking about any government policy that affects like 600,000 or hundreds of thousands to millions of people, like three people like that, something happened that shouldn't have. It's no one no one ever like would call that an ineffective policy. It's just good stories, especially if you're media reporting on the opposition.
All right, all right. So CK, I wanna open up to you. What is one thing that I didn't mention that you think can be classified as a big win, as good, for those that voted for Trump or happy for of what he did?
Oh, that you didn't mention. I want to almost shift back to DOGE and foreign policy.
All right, well
Um,
go to that one because I was gonna add foreign policy under mine.
yeah, yeah, Doge. I would say I wouldn't call it a big one. I would say the good thing is he exposed the problem, and maybe in the future, like this will be handled. Maybe people will start voting congressmen that will be more fiscally responsible. At least the problem is exposed. Government fraud, waste, and abuse is an actual problem. I don't know if Doge or Trump did anything about it yet, anything significant about it. But the problem is exposed, and that's step number one. Admitting there's a problem is always the first step.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was initially very excited with Doge because of USAID or USAID, and just how horrifically corrupt it was. And I got really disappointed when every news outlet and every single person in the country turned on Elon Musk and tried to destroy him because he was exposing government fraud, waste, and abuse. It's like, guys, come on, wake up a little. The media is like turning on Elon. Why? Because he's exposing politicians. And then Doge kind of has gone away into nothing. And to your point, the only way to actually stop government fraud, waste, and abuse is through Congress. But it's hard when they are literally the problem, the ones getting away with it. So it almost feels like a losing battle, but we did expose it, and it's something that we can continue to point to throughout the coming years and decades when we criticize our own government.
Yeah, probably in hindsight, a 50-year bloated bureaucratic mess is not going to get fixed in 100 days.
For real, for real. So when I look at the good, I probably would point to the border crossing. Honestly, I think ICE, to me, from what I've read and what I've seen, little, maybe not the best executed, but just stopping people crossing the border, I think, is definitely a massive W. But I look to the hard stance against China, and I was thinking a lot about this today and yesterday. And so there's so much hatred on Trump on his tariffs, and there's so much backlash of what he's doing to with the tariffs he put on China. Amazon came out where if you buy something off Amazon, they put the exact tariff price that you're getting charged with. Now the Trump administration's fighting back. You have people glowing up China right now when Chinese uh, people getting on the channel for China, basically saying like, we will not back down, we will fight and fight. China's been around for 5,000 years and will be around for much longer than the United States, right? So there's all this pro China willing to stand their ground and fight and play the victim, but a strong victim, a victim that's ready to step back up and fight because they're being unjustified on these tariffs. One, that is the definition of propaganda, and every single American falling for that, I'm just like, guys, low key, incredibly embarrassing. Like, open your eyes. Like honestly, how are you falling for this propaganda? One, the government's not good. Surveillance, it surveys its own people, surveillance its own people. It throws in anyone into jail that it doesn't agree with. They have literally a social monitoring. So if you're not a good enough citizen, they'll throw you in jail. Just Google the Uyghur Muslims and everything they're going through. And that's not even talking about all the stealing of technology that they do from us. It's not even talking about the fact that they're getting ready to invade Taiwan. It's not the fact that they're invading the Southeast Asia Ocean, so the Chinese Sea, and basically making artificial islands to get ready. Like all these horrible things that China does, and we're just seeing all this glow up. And the United States finally is waking up and saying, this is enough. We know they are an enemy. We know they're not good. We know that they can defeat us in the coming years and decades because they're playing the long game. Let's do something about this, because no company in America is willing to take, loss in their profits. So they're going to keep drinking the Chinese economy as long as they freaking can. And the only way they'll change is if we put tariffs and make them change. And so that's happening. Life's going to suck for a little bit, but it almost seems like it has to if you want to compete against China in the long run.
Yeah, MR. I don't like playing the good versus evil game. Sometimes I guess, obviously, you have a Hitler, Stalin. You can point and say evil. We should do something about it. You can maybe do that. I mean, obviously, there's atrocities China's done, but just look at it in a self-interest and point of view. China has stated and currently states that their goal is to be the supreme, like number one nation in the world by 2049. And part of that goal is to destroy and dismantle the United States. So, you can have your opinion on what they're doing is good or bad. United States is certainly not all good. Like
Sure,
I,
that's fair.
I get the most angry when people want to paint us to be the good guys, because
And I'm not trying to paint us the good guys. I'm just trying to ensure that China's not being painted as the good guys either. Like they
yeah,
definitely have their flaws. I'm not saying
but
that we don't.
but to your point, I think if you're an American getting on the news and defending China and saying, yeah, China's in the right, they are trying to destroy the United States of America actively. They have been. They're trying to do it without one bullet being fired. They're just trying to undermine us economically, diplomatically, and every other way possible, so that they don't even have to fight a war. They just destroy us from within. And so, just in the sense of self-interest, we need to stand up to China. I think the two biggest threats to the United States are internal and in China.
Yeah, I like it. We'll obviously cover more on that as news develops on other things. All right, CK, unless you have anything good else you want to say about the Trump administration, I want to move into the bad.
No, I'll just say foreign policy shifts. I like what he's tried to do, but the jury's still out. And will 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 he complete? Will he end the Ukraine-Russian conflict? Will he get some lasting peace in Gaza and Israel? Will we not go to another war in the Middle East? Will we stop talking about bombing the Houthis in Iran? And I mean, I don't like that at all.
Yep.
And hopefully, we back off of that. I think JD Vance has said, like, do we have to keep doing this? Uh, in the leak signal chats that are also a problem. But for the most part, I think he's had the right mindset in foreign policy. But again, he said he would do it in one day. That's just Donald Trump. You got to take the good with the bad. 100 days is probably not enough to end the Ukraine-Russia conflict. I think he has taken more steps to ending it than any, well, I can't say any.
Yeah.
There's only been one president, and then Biden. But I think he's trying. The jury's still out whether he'll succeed.
All right. I like it. I like it. All right, CK, let's get back to the game and let's talk about the bad. So I'm going to give you 3 bad things, universally bad, or at least maybe not universally, but considered bad. And I want you to pick one and let's talk about it. So behind door number 1, we have economic instability. So polls indicate that a majority of Americans believe the economy has worsened, with concerns over inflation and the impact of tariffs. Number 2, executive overreach. The unprecedented number of executive orders has led to legal challenges and being accused of bypassing democratic processes, including what he's done with Harvard and his criticism of judges as well. And number 3, civil service disruption. So mass firings and restructuring within the federal government has led to concerns about government and institutional instability. So, CK, what door do you want to pick?
Oh man, this is a much harder one. I think the economy.
All right, go for it.
So again, there's a lot of good things to point at. I think inflation is down. But
Bought 18 eggs organic for $10. I thought that was a win. Still not good, but it wasn't $16.
was it 16 and then 10 where you are?
Yeah, it's 10 now for 18 organic eggs. Pretty excited about that, actually. I
I
was like,
thought
this
the
is
price of
amazing.
eggs went down because I mean the whole thing was I think bird flu for eggs.
That was a factor, yeah.
I think that was a huge factor. But
Sure.
anyways, I think inflation is down, but tariffs are up. And like tariffs is a it's a gamble and it's unprecedented. So I think Trump is trying to fix a problem by creating another problem with the tariffs, and that's the most famous way government does anything. Like because to fix this problem, you have to cut spending. All roads lead back to fiscal responsibility and balanced budget. I harp on that almost every podcast now. I even gave the Mitch McConnell jokes a rest to just focus on fixing our deficit and debt. And I think he's supporting Mike Johnson. And I think the biggest problem with Trump, and this is kind of quasi economic instability, he hasn't pressured the Republican Congress at all, because I don't think Trump actually thinks we need a balanced budget. In fact, I think he wants to keep spending at least while he's in because he wants his interest to get executed. So tariffs, maybe they will be effective in some 3D, 4D crazy chess. I don't think so. I think you're trying to fix a problem by creating another problem, and they haven't addressed spending. That's you want to fix the economy, address spending, stop real inflation.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I definitely think economic instability is a massive concern, and I don't think tariffs. The more I look, the more research I do, the more things play out. It's like they're not going to save the economy. What they're going to do is they're going to hold other countries accountable, hopefully in the long run. And it's just like it's forcing companies to move off, especially out of China. But you aren't going to see the effects for that for years. Potentially
Yeah,
even longer, depending on what industry. So it's a
which I
lot
don't
of
hate either.
correct. Yeah,
I like finally someone thinking long term because what I will say what he's not doing, and I think Democrats are most guilty, but some of the Republicans have been guilty too, is there's economic instability. Let's spend a lot as a government, more as a government, and kick the can
yeah,
down the road.
and add more national debt. Yeah, which I hate.
Which I mean, you could say he's not doing that.
But he's
I
not
don't know
helping. He's not part of the solution.
exactly.
Yeah, and so for me, the economic instability is double-edged sword. If we don't have a crystal ball, right? So we don't know that everything's going to be better in 5-10 years. But I rather take the short-term suffering now to increase our chances of being successful in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. But what worries me the most, CK, and I'm very mixed on President Trump. I do think he does some good things, and he does some things that just make me cringe. And I'm like, why can't we just get some good consistency here? And I really think it's kind of a blend of the civil disruption, executive overreach, and just Donald being Donald. Like when he talks about, hey, I'm going to run for a third term, I'm going to figure out a way to do it. When he's promoting $5 million visas, when he's talking about joking around with other congressmen about buying the dip, when he's inviting investors into whether it was social or his own Bitcoin or his own cryptocurrency into a private event, when he does try and challenge institutions, whether those institutions are now corrupt or at least teetering on that, it's just you are discrediting yourself so much, and whatever good you do just gets overshadowed because no, I don't care if you're the greatest president in the history of humanity, you're not running for a third term. Like that's just not a thing. When you're like, no, like I'm not going to bend the line there. And so I think when he does things like that, it just angers me. And then it's just like, well, if you do anything good, it's the news is just going to run with these articles. The propaganda is going to run with this, and that's going to be the headline because that's just so freaking wild.
Yeah, I would. It's a distraction, and I don't like it either. Um, but again, that's who he is, I guess, and like that's who people vote. It's almost like many people say it's refreshing in a way. Someone will speak his mind and won't say things that are like I. People are tired of the robots who get up there and say, with
I
their
am
gel
too.
hair. Yeah, everyone's tired of the robots, and it's almost like, well, do we have to get the exact opposite, like the most
Unhinged
professional?
person ever.
Yeah, yeah, and but I think that's the pendulum swinging back, and that's Trump. I will say what the one thing I disagree with you. The one point for executive overreach is him challenging institutions. I think so necessary and welcome, and finally, because especially institutions like that were just getting fat off government money, and I don't all to me like all of the problems are just different faces of like the same the same coin, and it all leads back to like us being bloated and fat and spending, and you just manifest it in like education institutions and this and that and USAID and like all these NGOs, and it's just why are we spending money on these people to turn around and then like not care about the American people?
No, I know. There's I think the problem is that when you look at some of these issues, and obviously the bigger the issues, the more holes in it, right? So we can talk about a topic, right? And let's talk about like one thing I think is bad is our relationships with Europe is being damaged pretty aggressively to the point where European countries are looking to China for leadership, which is just absolutely mind-boggling. But that's the point, right? And so I don't think anything is ever super clear cut, right? There's always going to be compromises in every decision, and you're going to have to give up on something to get overall what you want. And you and I pretty much agree in the sense where we have to cut government spending and we have to prepare for China. But like, I don't want our European allies to hate us. I don't want to have a bad relationship with them. And in the same breath, I want them to pull their part. Because if you think about it, if you take a step back, if like you were just looking at this situation, you had no skin in the game, and you're like, oh, Russia's fighting Ukraine, Europe on Europe, and the United States is being called for and demanded by Europe to lead the negotiations. Like we're being criticized for not leading the negotiations by Europe, like a continent away, and we're supposed to take the leadership. That just shows how weak and fragile Europe has become. But in the same breath, I don't want to be enemies with them. I want to have a good relationship because I like Europeans. They're like amazing people and their country is beautiful. So like it's like this teeter tot of like what is going on.
Again, I don't agree with you there. I think
Okay. Wait,
you're
what part? That we're not leading, that Europe's not begging us to lead the negotiations?
no, they are. I think I don't care if they like us. I mean, sure, like European, the people, it's good to have them as a friend. But at the end of the day, they are so far removed from like the freedom and liberties and values that the Americans share, and they're just like so down the road of like this scary 1984 thing with censorship of speech, and you call anything like hate speech. You can't pray in your own house if it's near like an abortion clinic. That's crazy. Uh, Romania's canceling their own elections because of TikTok influence by Russia, and removing people from the ballot. That's, I mean, I think all of that
Oh,
is
I haven't heard
insanity.
that. That is pretty freaking wild. If that's, I haven't seen that at all.
Was it Romania or Georgia? We talked about this. Yeah, and it was Romania.
I mean, we talked about
We,
France pulling
yeah, and
their politician.
yeah, France did it too. I mentioned Romania after we
Oh,
talked
I must
about
have
France.
missed it. I must have missed it.
So all of that, the mass migration crisis. I mean, we experienced that too, but we uh, stopped that, and they doubled down.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so I think all of like these problems that are happening to us that the Americans said we don't want these anymore, they have doubled down on these and they've welcomed it with open arms. And so how long, like when they don't share any of the values that we share, and I won't say they don't share any, but like when there's less and less value shared, when do we say like we still value their partnership? And then like most importantly out of all that, they don't pull their weight. They're not doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that's the thing. That's my point I'm making is that there's so many holes in whatever you believe. Everything you just said is like, okay, that's really hard to debate those exact points because you can point to NATO spending, you can point to contributing from an economic standpoint, right? They're a consumer base with they're almost turning into a tourist continent, and that's what they're delivering is great tourism.
So I'm
It,
glad. I think it's refreshing that they're challenged for once. We talked about like the Green New Deal. You mentioned that. I mean, they went so far down green energy that they're just buying Russian energy now because they don't have any. They can't produce it themselves.
No, okay, I'll get on board with that one. So I'm a little passionate about that one. For disclaimer, I believe in renewable energy. Like I'm a very pro environmental person, but I at the same time I think you need to call a spade a spade. And believe it or not, nuclear energy is one of the cleanest and safest forms of energy that we offer right now. When you look at the entire process of like building the equipment and through its entire life cycle and the effectiveness. Of course, if you have a Chernobyl, it's not. But again, there's a lot of reasons why that failed, and there's still a ton of nuclear power plants. But anyway, so France and Germany are shutting down their nuclear power plants, and to that point, it's like, hey, this is providing so much energy for your country. It's doing so much good, and overall, it's really clean. Yeah, I know you got to store the uranium and put it down in a deep hole and let it sit there for 10,000 years. But outside of that, it's incredibly, incredibly clean. They shut it down because of these green acts that they're passing. And then they just import it from Russia, like, oh, yeah, we're not doing it internally. But CK, I'll one up you here. So I was actually looking up air pollution as like an indicator for determining how much, pollution, how much harm we're doing to the planet. The United States is one of the lowest in the world. So you got parts of Europe are incredibly low. We're really low. You want to know where the highest is in the world? And it's by like a metric shit ton. Like it's not even like comparable.
I'm guessing India and China.
India, China, and parts of Africa. Like there's a giant line through like developing Africa. And because they're developing, they're just using horrific energy sources to do that. And then you got like Pakistan. Yeah, Pakistan was in there. So you got like kind of like a bell running through Pakistan, down, up through into China, and then a line through Africa. And like the difference is so crazy. It like almost makes what we're doing and what Europe's doing like not impactful at all.
No, and you're exactly right. If we were actually serious about getting rid of fossil fuels, and nuclear would be the answer. It is the answer. Um, but there's propaganda and a lot of money in wind farms and hydroelectric and solar. And guess who's producing all the wind turbines?
China.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
and,
had
and
to China.
and so like guess who's influencing all these laws and like and they're fighting this war on us by getting us away from energy that we need to wind energy that is pretty ineffective and they're selling to us. So if you want to talk about 3D chess, like that's how they destroy us. They make us energy dependent, and then they also like we pay them to become energy dependent.
Yeah, just follow the rabbit hole, man. See where it leads. But all right, CK, I want to pivot and let's look at the next 100 days. So I'm going to give you three doors again, and you're going to pick what is most likely to continue to happen. So behind door number one, we have further DEI, education, and anti woke actions by the Trump administration. Door number two, economic volatility. And door number three, a continued push on border security and deportation.
Um, easy, quick one. You will see a continued push on border security. I don't think you'll see anything new, so we can close that door and keep it closed. Um, the DEI, education, anti woke stuff. Again, I don't think you're going to see anything new there. So economic volatility, you're going to see something. I think, hopefully, because really we're talking next 100 days. So we're talking 200 days into a presidency, 6 months. You'd hope to see interest rates go down, um, and some positive. You can say short-term suffering, but you can't afford that much short-term suffering because you have midterms to think about, and Trump will get absolutely nothing done his last 2 years if he loses the House.
True.
So I think you're going to see some policy to help the economy, and hopefully he can't lower interest rate. He's trying, I think, his best, but I think he's going to push even further to lower
Yeah, he's
interest
by
rates.
threatening like firing Powell, which he can't do. But the question is most likely to happen, and I would argue most likely to happen is the continued push on border security, keeping people from entering and deportation. I would argue that the anti-woke agenda that Trump is pushing, which we actually haven't really talked a lot about because it's so social and people get like more opinionated about that than anything else. And I don't know. I don't know if that's the reason why we don't touch it because people can get really, really angry about it.
You can say it, MR. We're trying not to get a strike on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that will most likely continue. And then if anything out of these three, the least likely to continue is economic volatility. If the tariffs stay, people will get accustomed to the tariffs and they will adjust accordingly. And at some point the interest rates will come down or they won't and you'll just get used to it. Like we're in that transition phase into a new norm. So if tariffs are going to stay with China, that will become a new norm. And whatever that norm turns out to be, I think will stabilize, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, and we'll just kind of get used to that.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. Like, will it work? Won't it work? I don't know, but something's gonna happen. I'll give you a door number 4 that I think is gonna
Ooh,
happen.
give me a door number 4.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be some firings in the cabinet because
Yeah,
that's who Trump is.
I think we have already called for one. I don't know how Pete Hegseth is still in his position. He's got a second signal leak. Like, call a spade, bro. You cannot do that. Like, you cannot do that.
Yeah, probably. Although Hegseth would be the guy that Trump doubled down on because
He's a
he,
loyalist.
well, that and like anything to piss off CNN, you know.
I was about to say, when I watch Pete speak, he looks the part, he sounds the part, he says all the right things, he's just clear, concise. It's almost like he just belongs on TV.
Yeah.
It's like he should have kept his day job.
But I do think there will be some big name firings, and we'll see the backlash of that. Um, I don't think it'll be because of any like crazy like. I think the media will try to paint it as everything's falling apart, like they always try to paint. But I think that's just who Trump is. I think if things aren't perfect, tweak, fire. Let's get a new face in there.
Yeah. So to wrap this up, because there's one more separate topic I want to cover. To wrap this up, if you were to look at the good, the bad, the ugly, Trump, his 100 days, what he's going to mean for the rest of the presidency, what else is still on your mind that you can summarize these first 100 days, or you're just looking forward to for the next step of his presidency?
I said it last episode. He ran a lot on transparency with the intelligence agencies. I don't need to say his name, but I will say Epstein, biggest one. Um, but like we we haven't heard anything since the first drop. Some people don't care. I get mixed bag with who I talk to who are Trump supporters. Some people are like, yeah, it's not a priority. Fix the economy, fix the border. That's what I care about. I don't really need to dive into conspiracies. But some people are like, this is why I voted for him. I wanted, I want the powers that be to be held accountable, and I want a transparency for this. And if he doesn't give us this, then he's dead to me. And I do think people are fed up with getting treated like children by government officials. I do think people want the government to start acting like they work for the people and not the other way around. And when the people ask for answers, I think the government should be looking to give those answers, and it shouldn't be no, don't look over there, not your problem. That's classified. When like
Yeah.
what would be a good reason why something like that is classified? It's because you're trying to protect someone, someone big, or possibly trying to protect the intelligence agency that colluded with Epstein, or protect a foreign intelligence agency that colluded with Epstein.
I like it. I'm going to hit you with this one. When I look at the first 100 days of Trump and I look into the next 100 and so on, the number one thing that sticks out to me is Trump fatigue. People get tired. There's so much hate on mainstream media. Whether you love the guy, hate the guy. CK, I think it was in our pre-huddle talk. You're telling me that over 90% of the big media coverage is just 90% negative on Trump. Um, and so whether
92% of stories negative on Trump. 89% negative on RFK, 100% negative on Pete Hegseth.
And so no matter how you feel about Trump, that is going to weigh on you to some degree. You're either going to start thinking that way just because it's all you hear, or you're just going to get so tired and fed up with it, and it's going to stop what you want. You're going to start hearing people saying, I just want to go back to normal. This isn't worth it. I don't care. This instability is driving me crazy. I just don't want to hear about this every single second. So I think that's part of the game by the media, the fourth branch of government. And I just think this fatigue is going to impact a lot. The momentum has slowed down. Elon has left. You don't hear much from RFK. You don't hear much from Tulsi. And maybe that's a good thing because they're actually doing their jobs and trying to get things done. But I think this fatigue, we're only 100 days in and people are tired already and things have already got shaken up at a high level, which is only, I think, an indication of what's going to come for the next 3.5 years.
Yeah, maybe that's true. I think people aren't stupid. The media can say what they want. I think you can't argue with results, and people will respond to results. People are responding positively to the border. The other stuff, like we said, the jury's still out. So you want people to be happy with you, then give us results. Don't try to spin something because, it was actually a shit sandwich, but I'm trying to make it look like, like the spinning and this and the dodging. Like the media can have that. If
Yeah,
you want people to support Trump, produce results. That's it.
it's the name of the game. All right, CK. So there's something that happened last night, and you would not believe it happened unless we were talking about it. The elections for the Prime Minister of Canada. So the reason I say you wouldn't believe it is because I check Reuters, I check Fox, I check CNN, and I check AP News. Those are like my four news sources that I'll just check daily to just check headlines and see how things are being compared. None of them were covering the election. You had to scroll all the way to the bottom, and then I had to Google it specifically because I saw someone posted on an Instagram story. One, how in the effing hell is this not being covered at all? Like, they're literally our northern neighbor. There's so much political divide. There's so much involvement in China's political affairs that are going to affect the United States, and it wasn't covered. So, strike one for don't know how the F that happened. And then two,
I
the
do.
liberal. I can't wait to hear your conspiracies, or maybe it's not a conspiracy. And then two, I don't even know his name. I'm blanking on his name right now. But the liberal side in Canada
Mark
beat the.
Carney.
Yep, he won. The liberal side won in Canada, which 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, when Justin Trudeau announced that he was stepping down, no one ever thought this was going to happen because the Liberal Party essentially ran Canada into the ground. Their housing prices, even though they're not an all-time high, they're close to the all-time high, where the median home price in Canada is $678,000 in the United States. Their economy is growing at like a 1.2% rate. Their purchasing power is going down. Their inflation's high. Like, overall, the Canadian economy is hot garbage. And it's because of the liberal policies. Again, I don't care if you're liberal or conservative in America, just look into Canadian politics. I think anytime one party is in power for too long, 10 straight years, you're going to start doing bad things. So there's no check on balance. But overall, just horrible. And then I guess some momentum happened, and Canada called a snap election, and they rode the momentum, and the Liberal Party beat the Conservative Party, which is, honestly, if you're Canadian, I'm not into Canadian politics, but I'm sorry for you because you're just going to endure the same hardship you've endured for the last 5-8 years when things were going downhill, and that's not going to change. Like, you are. At least with Trump, there's a hope for change from Biden's politics. Again, whether good, bad, or indifferent. But Canada, you're getting the same old, and the same is not good.
Yeah, that's the part. They ran snap elections. And no one is talking about this. And I cannot believe no one's talking about this because their election
Insanity.
is the third week of October. Always an election. They're allowed to run a snap election if there's emergencies. Parliament can call for one. Mark Carney called for one because of Trump's tariffs. And really, what happened is on Polymarket, Polivier had 100%. Like, it was like crazy. Like, it was like 99% odds of winning for like over 12 months. And then the Trump tariffs started happening, and they dragged Polivier in with that and said he supports Trump. This is his fault. Blah blah blah. the polls started switching, and as soon as the polls were in favor of Mark Carney for a split-second snap election, that's one of the most undemocratic things I've ever heard of. And maybe you could say that's not the reason. Uh, uh, if you could see my face, I'd be rolling my eyes because
But it is legal though. It is designed the way it is designed, which is like it's so does that mean they're not going to have an election in April or in October?
no, that is the election. That's what it does. They
Uh,
eh,
so it
constitutionally
resets to like 3 or 4
they
years from
have to
now.
run an election within a 5-year period, and
Okay.
so they'll go. But did you know that Trudeau did a snap election last time?
Oh yeah, that's right, man. That's right.
So this is just kind of
This is a playbook.
it's a playbook, and I just can't believe no one's talking about it. It blows my mind. And you're saying the media didn't cover it, the mainstream media. That's part of the playbook. You don't
Dude,
want to
once you start
drum.
like going down these rabbit holes, dude, we need some CK conspiracy corners going on because I feel like that's what we're turning into. Dude, I'm actually genuinely upset with how it turned out in Canada because I just cannot believe these same policies that are destroying Canadian culture, Canadian economy, Canadian military, everything good about Canada in the last 10 years. Like Canada objectively is significantly a worse country today than it was 10 years ago. Like significantly, and it's not even a comparison. And people still voted for this. It's like, dude, 100% don't want you as a 51st state. Like you guys are not thinking right. That it blows my mind.
Why do you think the media was so silent? You don't want a base to get rallied.
Well, it's not like they can do anything anyways. Think they're going to call another snap election? F no, they're not. They're going to hold power as long as they effing can.
No, I'm just saying, like, I,
Yeah, but
I
what are Americans going to do? You know, I to your point, like they didn't cover it, like American media didn't cover it, blows my mind. But like, it's not like Americans are going to rally for a Canadian conservative when American Canadian relationships are the worst it's been in who knows how long.
no, I just think like you don't see it on social media. You don't like out of sight, out of mind. So if you're Canadian, like, and you're like, should I elect like this year, right? If you're on the fence about voting and you're a Republican, you voted.
Sure, yeah.
Many, many, many people didn't didn't vote their whole lives and voted for the first time this year for Donald Trump. It was the most rallied Republican base of all time.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. But how did the Canadian conservative lose his momentum? Because I mean I was seeing that guy all over social media in October, November, December, January. I think it was only like the last 6 weeks where like I stopped seeing him like across all forms of social media and where I get my news.
Well, that's my biggest conspiracy
Ooh, I
corner.
walked right into it. Let's hear it.
If you really ask me, what I believe is that um, he never actually wanted to win. He was
How?
almost like a false flag. He was a planted politician,
Yeah,
intending
but was
to
he in
keep
politics
the
for
status.
forever?
Yeah, exactly. When you're in I think those are the most suspicious people. If you ask me, is like the career, like especially like out of college, never hold a real job in your life. Those people are fake from top to bottom. Every soul, every cell in their body, every piece of fabric, like is fake and just made up of whatever's like. If you listen to any 40-year politician, Biden or McConnell, just listen to them talk like 20, 30, 40, 10, 5 years ago. They changed their stance on everything because they don't actually believe in anything.
They only believe in continuing to hold power and getting a paycheck and getting insider trading tips.
So all of these guys would sell out. I mean, Mitch McConnell did it. Like you could say, well, like why would Mitch McConnell be so ardent against Trump? Why do you think? Because someone is
Threatening the base.
and keeping him in power and allowing it like he gets more for being against Trump than for being for Trump. And he doesn't care. He doesn't have a soul.
He traded his soul to the devil.
Yeah, to the
Man, I
highest
don't know,
bidder. I
dude.
You ask me what makes sense. That's what makes sense. That Olivier doesn't actually care, and the highest bidder told him to stand down. And so they had a snap election, and instead of getting ready and ramping up, he just okay. If we win, we win.
Dude. We live in wild times, CK. All right, you got any closing thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Closing thoughts. I don't know. You just had me go on a pretty heated monologue. You took the breath out of me.
All right, that can be your closing thought then. Canadian politics being wild as hell. So, turnups, again, as always, we appreciate you listening. We hope you do find value in this podcast. I know we've kind of gone on this little bit of a conspiracy. We're trying to give different views that you don't see on mainstream media or from your favorite podcasters and other forms to get your media. So, we're just trying to be a little different, provide some different insights. We try and stay unbiased. Obviously, we get passionate about some things and we don't understand why everything that happens the way that it was. But we both feel the more you look into something, it kind of leads to a trail and nothing just happens. There's usually a reason behind it, and it's probably not a good reason. There's probably someone's motives going behind that decision. But regardless,
And we get more views with people disagreeing with us in the comments. So
yeah, if you don't like what we're saying, please comment. Please leave every comment you possibly can. It helps us so much. Thank you so much. But thank you to the 150 listeners that continue to listen and support us. We appreciate you more than everything. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad, for continuing to listen. Appreciate you both as well. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Train by day, daily turn up, podcast by night.
Subscribe, like, and tell everyone you know.